And this is a Fox News alert as Republican calls for action grow louder over controversies rocking some big-name Democrats, one involving the President-elect's son, Hunter Biden. The other Congressman, Eric Swalwell, putting Speaker Pelosi under pressure, and all of it exposing the threat China poses as analysts say the communist nation is plotting to harm the United States. Welcome back to America's Newsroom Thursday morning. Trace, good morning. I'm Sandra Smith.
Sandra, good morning to you again. Good morning, everyone. I'm Trace Gallagher. Republican lawmakers are pushing for a special counsel to look at the Hunter Biden matter after Fox News obtained an email exchange in which Hunter gave a Chinese energy company executive greetings from the entire Biden family, bringing the links between the younger Biden's business dealings closer to his father. Now, GOP House members say it's time to get to the bottom of what went on. Here's Congressman Buck on America's Newsroom a bit earlier. Watch.
President Trump or President-elect Biden needs to appoint a special counsel. If you look at who Hunter Biden is dealing with, he's not dealing with Western European nations. He's not dealing with countries whose leadership share our values. He's dealing with communist China. He's dealing with a corrupt Ukrainian oligarch. These are people that no American company should be dealing with, much less the vice president's son.
Congressman Buck also dealing with the spy controversy surrounding his Democratic colleague, Eric Swalwell. Swalwell facing demands to step down from the Intel Committee after reports linked him to a suspected Chinese spy. He again ignored questions from the media about that relationship, indicating that he was on a Zoom call and could not talk. Joining us now is Congressman Chip Roy, one of the GOP lawmakers who co-wrote a letter to Speaker Pelosi, pushing her to strip Swalwell from his Intel Committee post. Good morning to you, sir. Thanks for being here. Where do you stand on whether or not, first, Eric Swalwell should be removed from that committee in the meantime?
Well, thanks for having me on. A simple request. I have about 16 colleagues that joined me in authoring a letter to Speaker Pelosi calling on Eric Swalwell to be removed from the House Intelligence Committee. We think this is a pretty simple step, and it's an important step. Unfortunately, the congressman, and I have no interest in getting into any of his personal indiscretions, that's between him and his family, but what he has done is endangered the United States of America. And he has done so because he knew full well that there was an investigation for 5 years into this engagement he had with a Chinese communist spy. And so we believe that he should be removed from the committee because he made a bad decision and he's endangered the United States of America as a result. Imagine, if you will, if he had done the same thing with a KGB operative in 1986 at the height of the Cold War. We need to recognize right now that communist China represents a dangerous threat to the United States of America, and we ought to treat it accordingly, and Eric Swalwell should be removed from the House Intelligence Committee as a result.
Brad Wenstrom from the House Intelligence Committee was my guest earlier, and he said this.
I can tell you that as Republicans on the Intel Committee, we met yesterday, and we are having our discussions on how we move forward. And I'll just leave it at that right now, but we are not just sitting back.
So really important questions here, Congressman. Maybe you could take us through this. There's got to be a timeline. Nancy Pelosi says members of Congress were briefed. Was it the Gang of Eight? If it was, who did get briefed? And why didn't they do anything about it? Were Republicans in the room when that happened? And then what about the suspected Chinese spy? Where is she? What is the contact that she has now with the FBI? What questions are they going to ask her, and what answers are they going to get about their relationship? Where's the text messages? Where's the emails that were exchanged? I mean, it feels like this story should be moving forward faster than it is.
Well, I agree, and I appreciate you highlighting it so the American people can see this. It's so critically important. Again, I analogize it to the KGB. If this were 1986, I promise you, this would be a major story, and we need to continue to make this the story that it really is. We need to look at the timeline. We need to know who knew what when. We need to know what other individuals in our intelligence community and our leadership had engagements with this particular spy or any others. This is a critically important issue. And let's also keep in mind that Congressman Swalwell, throughout this entire time, knowing full full well that there was an investigation going on, politicized the environment going after the president regarding a basically concocted theory about Russian involvement in our elections, and raising that and elevating that when we could have been actually focusing on this direct, clear engagement by China, our clear threat in terms of having a Chinese spy that had something over one of our House intelligence officials. And so I think we ought to be removing Congressman Swalwell and moving forward to try to make sure we protect the country going forward.
Congressman, as a member of Congress, I asked this of Wenstrup as well. Wouldn't there have been a paper trail of that briefing that Nancy Pelosi says members of Congress received after this revelation 6 years ago? And even if it was a meeting or a briefing in person, wouldn't there still be documentation that that happened?
Well, you certainly would think that there might be some information that's available on that, but we should investigate it and look at it. That's what I think we're calling on the Speaker as a leader of the House. Let's understand what happened. Let's understand who knew what when. Let's produce it so the American people can know. Let's have transparency. But what we know is that there's a Chinese spy that's have a direct relationship with a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Let's address it. Let's remove that member for having endangered the United States of America by hiding the fact that he knew this from his colleagues on the committee. And let's go through and look at who knew what when.
He's clearly Congressman. He's clearly had the opportunity. I'm running out of time here so quickly on this. He's clearly had the opportunity to answer questions, and this is someone who's demanded transparency from Republicans. So, to your best knowledge, why won't he answer a question on this?
Well, I mean, look, I think it's an embarrassing situation, and I think he knows full well he should have come clean with his colleagues. And I think that's what's going on, and I think Speaker Pelosi wants to hide it. I think she wants to tamp it down, and she wants to try to move on like nothing happened. We can't allow her to do that. This is the health, security, and well-being of the United States of America. We need to demand answers, and that's what we're trying to do by sending this letter to the Speaker, and she should respond.
Congressman Chip Roy from Texas, appreciate your time this morning, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.